Welcome to episode 70 of Working Towards Our Purpose. Thank you for being here. In today's episode, we are going to talk about feeling out of control and what to do when you feel like that. But before we get into that, we are going to take just a second to check in with ourselves, see where we're at today, and I'm going to do the same. Yeah. So I'm feeling pretty good right now. I think before I meditated, I usually try to meditate for 10 minutes before the episode. I was feeling a little imposter syndrome, I guess. Feeling like I want to have an episode that's good and questioning my ability to do that, I guess. But I meditated for 10 minutes today, and I felt at some point during the meditation, I don't know, I just got like this wave of reassurance and like calmness and feeling of love, which was like really nice and a little weird, but in a good way. So I wanted to share that and maybe spread that a little bit. Cause yeah, feeling pretty good right now. I'm excited about this song that I'm working on. I'm really liking the way it comes out, or really liking the way it's sounding, and it will come out at the end of the month. And yeah, just feeling good. So yeah, hopefully you got a second to check in with yourself, and yeah, let's get into the episode. So today we're going to talk about feeling out of control, and on the past few episodes, I've been kind of noticing in our check-ins that I've had this like higher level of like normal anxiety, which I don't normally have. And I was kind of wondering like where it came from and why it was there. Just like this higher baseline of anxiety. And yeah, I think I may have uncovered like at least a contributing factor to it. And I think part of it is thinking about growing my YouTube channel and just not having control over that. And there's things you can do to input building a YouTube channel. Like you make videos, you do the best you can, you try to do the title and the thumbnail game, but at the end of the day, I can't make people watch and I can't make people subscribe. So that part is out of my control. And I think like I kind of had these goals for the end of the year and working towards trying to get monetized. And those goals specifically have to do with watch hours and subscribers. And I literally can't control that. So I think, as I'm getting to the end of the year and this kind of deadline that I've set for myself, I've just been feeling more and more out of control because I can't control my YouTube growth. So at some point I realized that earlier this week, or maybe it was yesterday or the day before. And I realized that like that's part of why I've been feeling a little bit more anxious baseline, because of this thing that's out of my control. And I think that a lot of us can resonate with that. Like I think the feeling of feeling out of control is normal. And I think it happens to a lot of us, whether it's like you're in school or you're working a job where maybe there's things out of your control that are stress provoking. And maybe you're building something, maybe you're creative, maybe you're writing an album or, creating a YouTube channel or, starting a business. All these things have like so many unknowns and are out of your control. And if we focus too much on the parts that we can't control, it makes us feel like we're out of control and we don't have control over where our lives are going. Even other things like when things happen to us, a lot of times things happen to us that are out of our control, and it makes us feel like we have no control over our lives. And I think although it's like a fine line and a balance, you can't control everything in your life, but feeling like you have no control is very unsettling and uneasy. And I think that it leads to becoming overwhelmed and shutting down. And there's something I'm sure you've heard before, but if not, fight, flight, or freeze. And there's also another one, fawn, which we won't get into. But this is what your body sort of does when it becomes overwhelmed. It's like a thing that your nervous system does to protect itself when it senses a danger or it comes from, if I'm not misunderstood, it comes from like our old brains, like when we were fighting in the wild for food and stuff like that. If there's like a lion gonna attack you, you can fight the lion, you can freeze and not move, or you can flight, which is like leave. So this sort of same response that our nervous system has like learned over evolution, or I'm not sure where it comes from really, but this happens when we are like overly stressed and we start to get overwhelmed, and you can kind of fall into one of these categories, fight, flight, or freeze. But a lot of times when it's something that is like inside of our heads, we can't really fight it, and we can't really like leave the situation. I guess maybe you could, but I think most cases you just fall into the freeze category, where you just freeze up, you don't know what to do, and you do nothing. And that kind of just makes the situation worse, because if there's something that you're stressed about and you're not doing anything about it, it doesn't go away usually. So this is kind of, put some framework behind like our body's actual reaction to stress. And I think that, I heard recently that when your body does go into fight, flight, or freeze, that literal parts of your brain shut down, which is really interesting to me, because, that means that you aren't capable of problem solving. You're not capable of like trying to get yourself out of the situation, because you're literally using less of your brain. So I thought that was really interesting. And yeah, so just getting back to like this idea of control and feeling like you have some control over what you're doing. I think that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about how to get there. Like, how do we get that sense of control back? So moving into like the next section, like, what do we do about this? Like, maybe we're sensing that we're overwhelmed, and maybe we know that we're not doing anything. But how do we get out of that state? How do we like make progress forward and feel like we have more control? Well, there's two things I think that I've noticed, at least as far as my experience this week. And the first thing is to try to first calm yourself and realize that there's not a threat, and that you're safe, and there's no like immediate danger to you in this situation. For me, like I'm not actually being threatened by not having enough YouTube subscribers, right? But it leads to the thought process of like, okay, I don't have enough subscribers. I'm never going to get monetized. I'll never be able to make money. This whole thing that I'm doing is a waste of time, blah, blah, blah. And, you go down the spiral, and then you start questioning everything. You start freezing. You don't problem solve. So the first thing is to like try to calm yourself, and to whichever way you can do that. I mean, for me, things like meditation, going for a walk, like being kind to yourself, like trying to do something nice for yourself, making a cup of coffee and just like looking out the window, or, trying to just slow down and be a little bit more present. Breath work can help with that too. But whatever it is that you can do to try to like calm yourself down a bit, so then you can move into the second step that we'll talk about in a second. And I think another thing to note too is that I mentioned earlier is that this is a normal feeling. Like, we as people get overwhelmed easily, especially in today's society, when, I mean, you can go on your phone for 5 seconds, or okay, maybe a minute, and already be overwhelmed and sent down this spiral of questioning your own worth and, all the choices that you've made. It's so easy to lose that feeling or that sense of control like that you have over your life. So the first thing is to realize that it's normal, and then to try to like calm yourself and bring it down to a place where you can try to take an action. And that's the second step. And the second step is like, once you're calm enough, then you can try to take an action forward, no matter what your situation is, I think there's always an action that you can take. And so I'll use my example first. So once I like calmed myself from the spiral of thinking my, whole podcast and YouTube is a failure, the next thing I did, I was like, okay, that's not true. I'm feeling like this and that's okay. But what can I do? Like, and I tried to dig into like why it was stressing me out so much about the YouTube channel. And, to be transparent, it's because I would like to be able to make a living doing this at some point. And to me, that was the path that I saw, was like YouTube monetization. That way I could just keep making what I want and I'll get like some ad revenue or whatever. I'm not even really totally sure, how it works. I've never been monetized on YouTube. So to me, like that was the way out, right? That was the way to make the thing that I'm doing and the thing that I believe in to make me a living so I can continue to do it and to do more of it and get better at it and everything. So it's a money thing, right? It's me thinking like I need to be able to support myself. How can I do that with doing this podcast or this, YouTube channel? And so then I had a thought. I was like, okay, well, that's not the only way to make money doing this, right? So, if you're familiar with online business at all, there's things like digital products and courses, and you can go down that route and make helpful things for people that can then be purchased if they really like dig what you're doing. So I was like, okay, I'm not giving anybody right now an opportunity to purchase something from me. There's something I can do. So, the whole specifics of the story aren't important, but what I'm trying to get at is like, I then was able to think about like, okay, I don't need YouTube or strangers on YouTube. I don't need to wait for them to make an action so that I can support myself with this. I can do that now. I can build things. I can build, helpful guides or courses, coaching, whatever it is. I can do that right now within my power and work towards that. Of course, it's going to take work and all that, but that's kind of the point, is that like, now I have something to focus on. Now it's like, okay, if it's this course or PDF or guide or whatever, I can now invest my energies into this thing that I want to build out. And now I'm not worrying or waiting or letting my mind go into this trap of waiting for people to come to me. I'm making something now, and then I can put it out there. And then I've done something to move forward. I've taken an action, and that really made me feel a lot better. And because now I have this thing to focus on, right? Because I think when you don't have something to focus on, you just let your mind go in these stories that it makes up. And when you have something to focus on, it's like, okay, now I can hone on this thing, and I can go make this thing, and I can go put this on my website, and I can set up a payment processor, and I can like make another avenue for me to make this thing work. And I don't have to just wait. And that made me feel a lot better. And, it's only been a few days, but I haven't had that like high level base anxiety that I was experiencing. So I say all that to say that like these two steps can really help you get more control and feel like you're in more control of your own life, which can help you stop feeling overwhelmed. So again, just helping yourself to feel calm, however you get there, just, trying to realize that this is a normal feeling that we all experience as humans, and calming yourself down enough to where you can then think about like, what's one thing that I can step forward and take an action and do something that's productive forward, because then I have control over doing that step, and I have control over that action. And it doesn't even have to be big. It could be something really simple. Whatever it is you're working towards. It could be, sending an email or making a call or reaching out to a buddy who's doing something that you want to do. It can look like something very simple. Something that, one more sort of thing that I want to say to sort of exemplify this is I was on Instagram kind of scrolling through some videos, and like I don't like to do. And I came across this video, and it was this guy who was a web designer, and he walked into this business, and he went back a few times because he was trying to get the manager, and the manager wasn't there. He finally got the manager, and he went up to the manager and said like, "Hey, I noticed that your restaurant doesn't have a website. Is there a reason for that?" And the guy was like, yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know why we don't have one. And then, this guy making the video pulls out an iPad, and he says like, "Hey, I designed like a test website for your business. Here's what it looks like. What do you think?" And, of course it's a video on Instagram, so we'll take it with a grain of salt. But, the guy was like, "Oh, I'm interested. That looks great. Here's my email, let me know. Send it to me, and I'll take a look at it, and we can talk further." And to me, what that made me think of, whether it was like manufactured or not, what it made me think of was when I had my Pleasant podcast business and I was trying to get customers. And again, I had that feeling of like, it's so out of control. It's like, oh man, I don't know how to get new customers. It's out of my control. It feels, it's like I can run ads, or I can like make content, and like, all of it is just sort of hoping that people are interested, and even like booking calls with people, trying to convince them like, "Hey, I can do this job for you good." It's a lot of rejection, and it's a lot of no's. So that kind of can feel out of your control. And even just getting like people leads in is difficult. But when I saw this video, I was like, okay, this guy, probably went through that feeling of like, oh man, I can't find any clients to build a website for. So what did he do? He took it under his own power to work on this website for this business that didn't have one, and then was persistent to find the manager to be like, "Hey, here's a website that I've built, and what do you think?" And that gets you so much closer. You know what I mean? So instead of waiting around for people to be like, "Hey, I want a website," he's going and doing one for practice to see if, somebody actually wants a website. And it's like you're already doing the work. And it's, I don't know, it just reminded me of like, there's things that you can do to take action when it feels like things are out of your control. So when it feels like, getting new clients is out of your control, it's like, well, he took that step and built this website, even though he wasn't paid for it yet, just to take an action forward and to take a step to feel like he's more in control over getting new customers. And that's kind of what I felt like when I saw that video. I was like, that's a great way to take an action, to do something that feels like it's out of your control, and to make it feel more in control. So yeah, that was, just another example. I think that worked well with this episode. So, hopefully this was helpful, and hopefully it sort of drove home the point of, what happened to me this week, and like how this feeling of overwhelm is so normal and also so debilitating. And, what we can do to calm ourselves down, and then to take an action forward, to use, all of our brain when we're not overwhelmed and in freeze mode, and we can calm ourselves down and think about problem solving forward, and then to take a step of action. And just, from my experience, how much better I felt to just be able to do something in my control to move forward, and not have to wait for someone else. That's something that's not in my control. So yeah, hopefully this episode was helpful. Thank you so much for listening. I think that's all I got for you today. I guess one call to action before we end this episode, I guess, as I'm thinking about things I can do in my control to increase my YouTube subscribers. If you're out there listening and you have a YouTube account and you haven't subscribed to Working Towards Our Purpose, if you could take a moment to do that, I would really appreciate that. And if not, that's cool too. I'm not, it's not totally necessary, but I figure I have to ask, because that's something I can do. It's in my control to ask. So yeah, we'll end there. And I will see you on another episode real soon. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you.